Hey there, welcome back to Build APIs with Django the right way. Let's quickly recap our journey so far before we jump into today's session. In part 1, we laid the foundation. We created our project folder, set up a virtual environment, installed Django, and got our VS Code editor ready. Then came part 2 where we brought things to life. We created our Django project and first app, installed some helpful VS Code extensions, and launched the development server to make sure everything worked. In part 3, we started making it functional. We registered our app, applied the initial migrations, created a super user, and built our very first movie model. And now in part 4, we are taking the next step. We will create our first view, make the data JSON friendly, return a proper JSON response, and connect everything through URLs. So let's dive in and see how it all comes together. Today, we will create our first view to send movie data as JSONs. So let's begin. First, go to your apps folder, that is watchlist app, and open the views.py file here. Okay. Before that, remove from Django.shortcuts import render because we are not using it right now. Now the first step is to import the movie model, and this is required to fetch all our movie data. Okay, so we'll write it as from dot models import movie. Now let's create a simple function based view to fetch the list of movies. So we'll define a function with the keyword def. I am naming this function all movies as this function is to fetch all the movies. Then we have request represents the incoming HTTP requests. Inside this function, we will fetch all the movie records using a query set. Now we will take a variable that is movies and fetch the movie records using movie.objects.all. Okay. Here movies is a query set that contains all the movie records from your database. So if you look at it here, if you go to the admin page, inside the movie you will find, now we have already defined the two movies, the first being the Django journey and the second is debugging daylight. As we have added two movies to the database, so this query will fetch both of them. But we can't return the query set directly because it's not in a format that browser or apps can understand. So what do we do now? We need to convert this query set into JSON friendly format so that any browser or app can use it. To make it JSON friendly, the first step is to convert query set into a Python friendly format using the values method. Okay, so next we write it as movie data and then movies dot values. Okay, so this gives us a dictionary like version of each movie. with fields like title, storyline, and is released in a format that Python and Django can work with easily. But it is still not ready for the front end. So to make it fully usable, you have to wrap the query set in the list function. Okay, by doing this, you convert the query set into a Python list of dictionaries. Now each item in the list is a dictionary representing one movie. Okay. Now if you want to send this data to the front end, maybe React app or a movie screen, you need to return it in a JSON format. But now the question is, why JSON? Because JSON, that is JavaScript object notation, is the universal data format used for APIs. It is lightweight, easy to read, and work perfectly with browsers, mobile apps, and front ends. Django makes this easy with a built-in class, and that is JsonResponse. First, we need to import the JSON response from Django.http import Django response. That turns Python data into JSON automatically. Okay. Now you can return the movie data as JSON response, and now we need to define a dictionary. The dictionary key, we can take it as movies, and we'll get the data from movie data. Okay. But if you pass list directly like JSON response movie data, Django will raise an error by default. So we wrap the list inside a dictionary such as movies, because JSON expects a dictionary by default, and it makes your API response clear and structured. So this way it sends all your movie info as a proper JSON response to the browser or API client. So let's quickly recap how data flows in Django from backend to front end. It all starts with database where movie data is stored using Django models. Then we fetch the data using a query set. We use values method to convert the query set into a dictionary like format, something Django can work with more easily. Next, we wrap it in list function to get a list of dictionaries where each dictionary represents one movie. Both the query sets and the list of dictionaries are Python objects, just in different forms. Finally, we use JSON response to send this cleaned up data as JSON, a format your front end like React or a mobile app can easily use and display. In summary, it starts in Django model. We fetch it as a query set, then convert it into a Python list of dictionary, and finally send it as a JSON response to the front end. Next thing is to setting up the URL. But before we set up the URL, let's quickly understand how Django knows what to do when someone visits a link in your app. That's where a URL comes in. They work like a roadmap for your project. In Django, we usually work with two URL files. First is the project's urls.py file. In my case, the project name is REST movie. Okay, so this is the urls.py file inside the REST movie project folder. And this is the main URL file that connects the project to all the different apps. Second, we have the apps urls.py file. For example, in our watchlist app, right now you won't see a urls.py file because Django doesn't create it by default when you make a new app. So before setting up the URL path, let's create one. So just right click on the watchlist app folder, select a new file and name it as urls.py. This is the one. Okay, this file will store all the routes for this app. Now let's connect this view to a URL. So first open your project's url.py file. Remember, this is the project level file, not the apps url.py. Apps url.py is this, which is within the watchlist app, and this one is the project's urls.py file. Now import path and include. By default the path is already there. Now we need to import the include also. Yes. Path is used to define individual URL routes, whereas include is used to connect the project's URLs to an apps urls.py. Okay. Then update the URL patrons list. Here we can define the new path, that is movies / and then include the app's name, that is the watchlist app, .urls. Okay. This tells Django if someone visits any URLs that starts with movies / then go and check the URL patrons defined inside the apps watchlist app urls.py. So basically we are connecting the main project, that is the REST movie, to our apps URL system in watchlist app. Now go into the apps urls.py file and add the actual view. So here this is the apps urls.py file. So in this, first we will import to define URL routes. So from Django.urls we will import the path. Then we import all movies from .views import all movies. Okay, this is the function based view we created earlier in our apps views.py file. This is the one, all movies. So now we are connecting this view to a URL so that when a user visits the root, Django knows which view to run. So now let's define URL pattern as inside that we can define the path, that is this is the URL path. So if someone visits /movies/list, so Django will use this view. Okay, here we need to write the function name. The function name is all movies. So this is the function that we had created in views.py file. Okay, so that we can able to fetch and return all movies. Then we'll give a unique name to this root. Say the root name is movie list. This root name is helpful later when we use Django reverse function or tags to generate URLs without hard coding them. Okay, don't worry if name as movie list sounds new, we will discuss and use it later in the series as well. So here we define the URL path. If someone visits movies/list, Django will run the all movies. So how it works? If you look at it here, if we write like http://127.0.0.18000/movies/list/. So this movies comes from the projects, that is rest movie urls.py, and this list comes from the apps, that is watch list app url.py file. So first Django checks the projects urls.py to see which app handles movies. Then it goes to that app's url.py and find /list and calls the correct view. Okay, this is an important concept. Once you understand how this connection works, the rest of Django routing becomes easier to follow. If it feels confusing, I strongly recommend to pause and review this step before moving forward. Now visiting /movies/list will show the result from the movies list view. Now open your browser and open the new tab. Go to http://127.0.0.18000 movies/list. So if everything is set up correctly, you will see your movie data in JSON format. Yeah, if you go it here, you will see in a pretty print way. Yeah, I have also installed JSON Viewer Pro. So if we will refresh it again, now you can see it in more beautiful way. Okay, how do you know it's JSON? In JSON you will see all the keys here like title and the text are in double quotes. Here also storyline, the keys and the title all are in double quotes. Okay, and boolean value appears as true and false with lowercase letters. If you remember, when we have defined the models, in Python the boolean value like default as true is in init cap, that is the first letter is in the uppercase, whereas in JSON all are in the lowercase, all the letters are in the lowercase. Okay, so now you have seen how Django takes your Python data and automatically turns it into JSON, ready for your front end or client to use. All right, now let's wrap up what we covered today. We started by creating our first function based view in Django, that is all movies. Then we fetch all movies record from the database using a query set. Converted the query set into a list of dictionaries to make it JSON friendly and return the data as a proper JSON response using Django class, that is JsonResponse. Finally, we connected everything through the project urls.py and apps urls.py. So our API is now ready to serve movie data. Perfect. Our Django API is now able to send movie data in JSON format. Next, we will make things even more interesting by allowing user to fetch details for specific movie using URLs like /movies/1 or /movies/2. Okay, that is getting information for just one specific movie instead of returning all the movies at once. So if you again look at it, if you again go to the browser, then right now we have multiple movies saved. But let's say you want to get details about details about just the first movie, or maybe the second one. Okay, to do that we need a unique URL that points to that specific movie. Okay, and for that we will create a new view inside the views.py file. So this view will accept a request and a primary key, that is PK, and that is the unique ID of the movie we want to fetch. Now let's create a simple function based view to fetch a specific movie. So we will create by defining a function like using the def keyword, and I am naming this function as single movie. Okay, and with parameter as request and primary key. For example, if we want to fetch the movie with ID equals to 1, so in this case the PK value will be 1. We will pass parameter or the variable value, that's a PK equals to 1. For the second movie, we will pass PK value, primary key value equals to 2, and so on. And this primary key value will automatically generates. Dynamically it will be generated. So inside the view, we will write a query to get just that one movie. So instead of using something like movies.objects.all, we will use like movie. We will use something like a movie dot objects dot get, and then the filter parameter like primary key equals to primary key, and this primary key gets the value from here. Okay, and now we will print the value of movie title. So we can write it as movie title is movie.title. Great. So let's make our print output more fun by adding an emoji. This isn't part of Django or DRF, but it is a cool little trick. Place your cursor where you want the emoji. Like I want inside a print statement. So the next step is like we on Windows, we need to press window key plus or window key along with the dot. Okay, the emoji panel will appear. Then search for movie. Yes, here it is. Now click it and it automatically inserted where your cursor is. Great. All right, let's move on, and that's exactly how we can fetch a single movie record from the database. So let's test this out by printing the movie we get. But wait, before we can test it in browser, we need to create a proper URL for it. So we'll go to the apps url.py file and add a new path here. First make a comma and then add a new path. This path should include an integer in the URL, and that will be our PK or the primary key value. So we'll write it as integer PK slash and then single view. Yeah, before that we need to import the function. That's a single view, single movie. Okay, single movie, and we'll give the unique name as movie detail. Okay, here init colon pk captures the movie ID as an integer, and single movie is the view that will handle this request. And the movie detail part is useful when we want to refer to this URL in our Django project without hard coding the actual path. Great. Now we will visit movies/1 in the browser. So we'll open the browser. Okay, and we'll write it as movie 1 slash, and it will retrieve first movie. Maybe we need to, okay, I believe there is some invalid character here that we need to check it. We go there and we check it in the print. Sorry, this quotation, this quote should come here. Okay, so now again we'll open the browser and refresh it. Okay, the browser can't show anything yet because we haven't returned a proper response from the view. Like if you look at it here, we haven't basically included the return statement. Okay, but if you check the terminal, you will see here the movie title is the Django journey. Okay, similarly, if you write it here as second movie, then it will show the name of second movie in here. The movie title is Debugging Daylight, which means our code is working perfectly. So let's fix that. So here we'll define the dictionary like data. Okay, and we will have title as a key and the value that will be movie dot title. Similarly, next will be storyline, and movie dot storyline, and then is released, movie dot is released. Okay, then we return this as a JSON response, that is return JSON response and the data. And that's it, and we can comment print for the time being. Okay, now when you open your browser and refresh it, yes, now you will see a clear JSON response with the movie title, storyline, and is released. Similarly, we can view it for movie 1. This is the pretty one, and this is in the JSON Pro. Okay, so this is a simple way to return a single object data as an API response using just Django, and no extra tools needed for it. Great. But here is the thing, doing all this manually for every view like create, update, delete can be time consuming and prone to errors. And that is exactly where Django REST framework comes in. DRF makes building APIs much easier and faster. It takes care of things like serialization, means converting your models into JSON. Then views supports both function based and the class based views. Authentication is to keep your APIs secure and rendering responses in a format your front end can easily understand. All of this comes in one powerful developer friendly package. In the next lecture, we will begin working with DRF and learn how it simplifies everything starting with serialization. Thanks for following along and I will see you in the next one.